want you to take a look at this picture right here. This is Halo for the Game Boy playing on a GameCube that's then playing on the PlayStation TV. I've managed to pretty much bring all three platform holders together for this video, and something that I think is really cool because we used to have this back in the day. Not necessarily all three platform holders working together for a Game Boy game, but we used to have console versions of games that had to be basically recreated to fit on a Game Boy or a Game Boy Advance or on the Game Gear. It was really cool at times to see what would come out of that. It wasn't always good. In fact, most times it was actually bad, but you'd occasionally get a game that absolutely shocked you with what it ended up being versus what you were expecting. Today, though, we're taking a look at a demake, one that's been in the works for a while and recently had, I'd say, a pretty big update, and that's for Halo Combat Devolved. It's a Game Boy game that is being recreated in Game Boy Studio or GB Studio, and today I wanted to talk about my time with it because I did play through the first two levels that have been released, and gotta say, I'm really looking forward to the rest of it. So if you guys enjoy this video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and we'll start today with this video sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Cook Unity. This is Turkish beef kofta with cherry rice and sauteed green beans. It's a meal I would usually have no shot at making myself, but in this case, I had some help from Chef Ahmet Kurenbey and my microwave. Cook Unity is the first chef-to-consumer platform delivering freshly prepared, pre-selected meals straight to your door weekly. Simply choose from a list of carefully curated meals with over 7 dietary preference filters, including vegan, paleo, and gluten-free options. Meals are delivered fully cooked, so all you need to do is heat them up. All meals show up in this nice temperature-controlled bag with everything inside listed on the top. The whole delivery and packaging experience feels very personal and handcrafted. There are options outlined on the top of each meal, letting you pick between a slower cook time with an oven or the fast, convenient use of a microwave. It's all easy to follow, and I like the option here since it fits in well for a quick on-the-go lunch or a nice dinner option to impress company and act like I know how to cook great tasting food that I sometimes have a hard time pronouncing. Seriously, if you're not known for cooking much in your family, the next time you have people over, use Cook Unity to heat, plate, and serve food, and watch everyone just be confused as to how you pulled off that sort of spread. The subscription is extremely flexible, and you can pause, skip weeks, or cancel at any time. I'm a big fan of chicken, and here I was able to try different takes on it with the Mediterranean braised chicken or the southern fried chicken with spicy honey. I was supposed to have it for this final shot here, but I started eating it, and well, at least I have the other two meals here. So go to cookunity.com/spawn50 or click the link in the description below and use my code SPAWN50 to get 50% off your first order of Cook Unity meals to try them out for yourself. Thanks to Cook Unity for sponsoring today's video. So Halo Combat Devolved is something that you can download and play right now, which you can use it in an emulator. You can actually play it on real hardware. So on a Game Boy, if you have one of those flash cartridges, you can drop it on an SD card, pop it in there. You can also play it on any of the different emulator handhelds, or you can play it directly in the browser. In fact, on the main page that I'll link down below in the description, you just click Run Game and you can play it right there. They have all the controls laid out below that. Today, I'm going to be playing it on the GameCube, so I can just capture footage here and stuff, but it's still really funny to be able to play Halo, obviously, on the GameCube, not necessarily the Xbox version, but still, it's fun. Anyway, let's take a look at Halo Combat Devolved here, and again, the idea is they are going to follow the plot line of Halo down to each individual level that's outlined under the missions tab, but doing it on the Game Boy. So when you first start it up, you do have what is a somewhat familiar-ish looking title screen: Campaign, Continue, and Missions. This does indeed have like save and quit, so you have checkpoints throughout the game. So if you have to, say, put the Game Boy down for a bit, you at least have enough checkpoints, I would say, so that you don't lose too much progress if you have to shut it off in the middle of the game itself. The missions, you do have like hard checkpoints between each level, basically, and right now they have 2 different levels. And the reason I wanted to check this out is because Halo is one of my favorite levels of all time in all of video games, which we'll get to here in a bit. But first, when you start at the game here at the title screen, you do have, well, a very familiar theme playing, just one that's a bit more akin to the Game Boy hardware. I noticed that theme plays a lot throughout these first couple of levels, but still, I think it is really cool. It's very close to the original, at least has the same spirit, and again, working into the limited hardware of the Game Boy. I think they did a pretty good job here. But you start up the game, and it starts up as you would expect. At the Pillar of Autumn, you wake up as Master Chief, and, well, you're under attack immediately. So, as you set out here, I mean, visually speaking, it's the Game Boy Color, so they are pulling from different color palettes that you would get out of that Game Boy Color hardware, as opposed to the monochromatic, just regular DMG Game Boy. And they do take advantage of the additional color palettes here pretty much throughout, but more so in the second level that, again, we'll look at here soon. But when you start up, you do have 4 directional movements, so it is something that I think I would like to see them move to where you can move diagonally as well as shoot diagonally, because you do feel fairly limited when moving around and engaging in combat. But again, this is kind of like the early stages of it here with the first 2 levels. Still, though, when you then take off, you have sort of this isometric view, and as you go around, you'll see different scripted battles happening between the Covenant and Marines, and it is trying to recreate that initial pathway that you have to get to the command deck so that you can meet with Keyes and, of course, Cortana. It didn't necessarily have the same tension or danger of the Halo on the Xbox. Obviously, that was built out a bit more in terms of 3D and trying to make it look somewhat more cinematic as you're running past these battles where it looks like the Marines are getting beaten down. It was still fun to at least try to have that recreated there. But when you do get Cortana, you will also get your first weapon, which is the pistol. The pistol in Halo 1 is incredibly powerful, and it's still that powerful here. So you'll have 2 main weapons as you go through this game. You'll have a pistol, and you'll have an assault rifle. This is pretty standard stuff, but it doesn't seem like it's really worth ever using the assault rifle. At least I didn't find any real reason to use it. The pistol has a 50% chance of getting a headshot every time you fire it, which to me feels like every other time, yes. I mean, it does seem like I was killing things way faster than the pistol, even though the assault rifle fired off twice as many bullets at a time. But the pistol it seemed to wipe things out in 2 or 3 hits. Sometimes it was just one-shot things, like immediately. So, yeah, I basically used the pistol just about the whole way through this first level, which did feel like it went on a little too long, and I did also feel like I could have used a map for this one as well as the second level, so maybe that's something that you look into, as there is still room on, say, the pause menu, which when you do that, you just have a couple of selections here and a blue screen. Feels like there is some additional work that could be done here just to convey more information. I think it'd be fun to have like the image of the weapon you have equipped, which you switch between them with select, and if they decide to go to you having a limited amount of ammo, you have the amount you have in your clip at the time, and if you need to reload or not at the bottom. You press on to the escape pod, and they have these fun little images that are kind of in the place, I assume, of the cutscenes, where it'll have this Game Boy looking version of Master Chief there set up as he's then plunging to Halo. And this is the level, this is one of my favorite levels of all time in gaming, and I think it's just kind of that you had to be there moment. So the whole time in Halo Combat Evolved, you're going through corridors and stuff in the ship, and it feels very similar to what you'd expect from a game like this. And remember, this is back in 2001. We had shooters, sure, but this was that next level for many people on consoles and shooters. And when things opened up and you got out of that, well, you crash landed on the Halo, but it sort of faded in, and you looked around and you're like, wait a minute, this isn't like sectioned off anymore. You're not like hallways or corridors. It felt very open and very like alive. It's kind of hard to describe, but there was that moment where you look around and go, oh wait, I can go in all different directions here. And it's like a semi-open world style setup there for that Halo level. And in fact, they've kind of been able to recreate that here with the Game Boy, which does feel fairly impressive. And as I was going through, which you have a major shift to where instead of it being kind of like this gray and dark palette in the Pillar of Autumn, it's opened up and it's like green and blue, which has kind of its own biome there. But as you're going through, you're still fighting Covenant, which mostly are elites, grunts, and then they also introduce jackals, which obviously have shields, and when you only can fire in 4 directions and it's a 2D plane, those shields are fairly powerful because they'll block everything. You have to go around them and just kind of blast them a few times, then they'll get wiped out. And those are the main 3 enemies you'll be fighting here at this time. Seems like they'll be adding more in as you figured going forward here. But as I'm going through, you do find different structures and monuments and stuff that you'll be fighting on top of. But then there's this moment where they go, okay, we're bringing the Warthog in. And I'm thinking, oh, wow, they're really going to do that. They do. You get in a Warthog and you drive around in this combat devolved Game Boy recreation of Halo, and it's actually a lot of fun. Well, okay, so it is just a faster sprite, technically. Like, there's no, like, impressive animations on it or anything, but still, it was a really fun feeling to jump in the Warthog and just start blasting around in this game. And you also have a gunner, so if you get close to an enemy, it'll just start, like, annihilating them. And this is just done by a person with GB Studios, so when I'm seeing this happen, and then there are these creative moments where, so as I mentioned, you have two main weapons. Well, there's also the sniper rifle, but that actually triggers a minigame to where you are zoomed in and you're moving this reticule around. And I've seen this in other Game Boy games. I'm thinking of Perfect Dark had something like this, where you move a cursor around and you just fire at enemies that'll sort of pop out of cover. And that's basically a little mini game you go through, and when completed, you'll save those Marines. So your main objective is to drive around and find Marines that are stuck in different areas, and then call in dropships to pick them up, to rescue them. And there are a few times where you find, for example, you find sniper rifles near them, and you have to then take out enemies to save those Marines and basically give them cover fire. Others, you'll just be taking down different Covenant that are sort of in the area to free the Marines that are stuck inside of different buildings. The Warthog also has this thing where it can jump over bodies of water or cliffs if there are certain tracks. So there is like this extra movement ability that's added that if you have the Warthog with you, you can get to, whereas if you're on foot, you wouldn't be able to. So that's a fun little wrinkle thrown in there. There are, I think, many things that can be added here. For example, grenades being a big one. I think just additional weapons like plasma rifle or needler, just Covenant weapons in general. Oh, and while you do have shield and health that adds some elements of strategy to combat, I think there's just so much more that can be done here. As I mentioned, being able to move diagonally would actually be a big one. But also melee, I think having that ability to be able to just literally punch stuff as Master Chief, even if it's like a quick thing where you press a button and Chief basically lunges forward a tile and then back, just something like that I think will be really cool, especially if you get to a point where you have limited ammo in the game and you have to sort of hunt for ammunition or different Covenant energy weapons. Being able to just get that last hit to take out an enemy with a melee attack, I think would add a lot to this game. That said, I don't want to take anything away from Sofa Swordsman and what they've been able to accomplish here, because this is just awesome to see, and I think it's something people should just give it a shot, see what you think, and if you have the ability to play it on actual hardware, whether it's a Game Boy player or on a Game Boy or Game Boy Advance, try it out there, because it does kind of feel like something that would have legitimately released back then from a development studio, and this is being done by one person just in their free time. So really cool stuff. Again, I'll link to it down below in the description if you would like to check it out, and I fully recommend you doing that. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.